When you see staggering numbers, when you try to shop for a hard drive and then you purchase it, when it gets delivered, you plug them into your machine, and then when you try to transfer, you are really disappointed seeing that the transfer speed is not as it was mentioned in the website. So there are certain aspects that you might also look into to achieve the same transfer speed as mentioned in the website. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about the different types that are commonly available that you might be seeing, and what are all the different set of parameters that, not all of them, probably most of them, that might help you to take an informed decision when you are about to purchase a hard disk drive.
First thing first, we need to understand how we measure this transfer speed. What is its unit? Put it this way, in order to find the distance and how long it's gonna take to travel between those two places, we would use a unit called kilometer per hour or miles per minute or second, whatever, right? Based on the time. Similarly, the transfer speed of the data is measured in bits per second. Bit is a fundamental unit. It could be either 0 or 1. 8 of these individual units form a byte. Thousands of these form kilos and millions of these make mega. We always calculate the number of bits in terms of bytes when we represent a size or a volume, wherein in case of transfer speed, we will go with megabits per second instead of megabytes. Buying a hard drive or like a portable drive with the specification USB 3.2 Gen 2 or Thunderbolt 4 or Thunderbolt 5 does not directly make your transfer speed to 10 Gbps or more. It all boils down to what are the type of cable that you are using, what are all the ports that are on your physical device, is it compatible with the drives that you are trying to plug it in with. So these are all the different factors that might affect the transfer speed. Before getting into it, we firstly need to understand that USB has like two things. One is the USB protocol, which has like different generation and version, wherein like USB type as in the physical cable itself, wherein it has different types of port. All the ports in it are not compatible with all the versions of the USB and the generations of USB. Speaking of which, let's talk about the different types of port available right now. This is the most commonly used in the typical hard drives. On the other end could be either connected with USB type A or USB type C depending on the type of cable that comes out of the box. Most of the hard drives today, they come with USB type C on both ends, and some come with USB A on the other end. Now let's just talk about the USB protocol itself. The protocol is what tells like how the devices communicate with each other and what kind of power supply that it needs to send, how to handle errors, and how much data can be transferred. So all these are determined by the protocol itself. So there were different revisions of protocols over the year, starting from 12 Mbps over to 120 Gbps right now.
To add more fuel to the fire, we also got Thunderbolt protocols.
You might be wondering why the Thunderbolts are not supported with mobile phone yet. It's interesting that Thunderbolt is proprietary to Intel and it is targeted at high bandwidth application and computers. So it's primarily available in Macs and iPads, personal computers, and even laptops these days, like they mandatorily get shipped with Thunderbolt ports. However, the phones on the other hand are still sticking with USB 4 or 3.0.
This is where it gets a little bit tricky, because the end consumer might not understand like the different actual versions, and then what version is compatible with what type of cable and the port. That's where cool feature that the newer versions of the USB drives are backward compatible with the older versions. That's the only reason when we try to connect a device to a USB peripheral, we do not have to check whether if the versions are compatible with whatever the device that I'm connecting it to. And to add to that, we are talking about connecting devices, which means a device or like a cable that connects devices at both ends. So in which case, we have to make sure like those devices that we are trying to connect are also compatible with the protocol that it's trying to act on, or else it will fall back to the previous versions, resulting in the lower transfer speed. So it all depends upon not only the SSD or HDD that you try to purchase. It all depends upon the cables or mini adapters that you use to connect to your host machine, and the ports on the host machine by itself. That could be the reason for your slowness when you transfer files. And not to forget, it could be also USB hub or USB dock or a Thunderbolt dock that you might be trying to connect to your devices to extend the number of ports available to you. This could be the exact reason why your devices might not be transferring at the speed that it is marketed at. You should not only consider like the transfer speed that the product states while purchasing a device, but also keep in consideration that what are all the devices that I have and will it be compatible with the device that I'm going to buy. That's what is going to determine the transfer speed and the usability of the product. And also to mention that there is the read speed and the write speed. We have to make sure like the devices that we get meets our requirement with respect to the read and write speed. Just know the transfer speed, because if the read speed is higher but however the write speed is lower, when you're trying to use that device as a source, it would work better. But like in case if you are trying to use the device as a destination, then since the write speed is lower, that's gonna clog the transfer speed.
Example wherein I am trying to transfer data from my Sandisk Extreme 4TB drive to Samsung T9 4TB. However, their transfer speed is around like 1000 megabytes per second, provided the read speed of Sandisk. In this case, I'm using a USB 3.2 Gen 2 port on a Windows laptop to perform this action, connecting these two devices at both ends in my Windows laptop. I'm using a Sandisk cable that's provided when I got the Sandisk in this case, and I'm using a bulk adapter and a old Mac cable. So if you look at here, like the transfer speed is around like 24 Mbps, even though we used a device that supports like 1000 MB per second. Now just by replacing the Bulker external adapter with the Sandisk adapter, I start getting a transfer speed around like 180 to 200 megabytes per second. I was wondering if this could increase in case if I use Robocopy, and it turns out that it's almost the same.
In both these cases, we tried to transfer data from one SSD to another SSD using our Windows laptop. Now, when we try to transfer it from SanDisk portable SSD into our internal SSD in the laptop, we get around 30 Mbps when we use bulk adapter, wherein when we start switching it to the SanDisk adapter, we get an increase in speed, but like that's limited to 600 Mbps. But alternatively, the tech specification says that it supports up to 1000 megabytes per second read speed, which is not happening in our case right now. We would need to connect it to Thunderbolt port to check see if that gets any better. Interestingly, after switching it to Mac, connecting it to Thunderbolt 5 with different cables, I tried to repeat the experiment with a similar pattern. It turns out that it is reaching about 1000 Mbps as specified in the specification. It turns out now that these cables and adapters could be a bottleneck in case of the Windows machine, wherein when I am directly using USB-C to C to pair it with my Mac Thunderbolt 5 port, it meets the actual transfer rate as specified on the paper.
In this case, I'm not getting 2000 megabytes per second. The reason for it is I'm not using Gen 3.2 2x2. As a user, I need to understand that it only works with 2x2, not 2x1. If at all, if we are expecting 2000 megabytes per second. Even I have Thunderbolt 5 connected to it.
Now that if you want to buy an SSD, the transfer speed that you are looking at the website or in the paper might not actually be the case when you try it in your local machine. That's because of you might be using a different ports, you might be using an adapter, you might be using a different sort of cable that might hinder the transfer speed that actually is stated on the paper. So you might also have to consider what devices that you might be using it with to actually take an informed decision. These are the set of numbers that I received while experimenting with different hard drives and SSDs. Your case might differ. Just in case if you feel it differently or otherwise, post your comments in the description box below so that I can learn and understand. If you have liked this video, give a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.